Today I'm talking to Dr. Pat Harrold. Pat's a GP, writer, broadcaster, and musician, a man of many talents. But Pat, tell me a little bit about how you got into the journalism and writing.
I was always a big reader. I grew up in a house full of books, and I never really stopped reading. And I just kind of liked writing. When I realized when I was young that it was one of the few things I got any credit for at school. I remember clearly around the time of the Celtic Tiger. The Irish Times health supplement was really thick. There was loads of articles. Newspapers were very big in those days, big property sections. And I remember reading it and thinking, this is all very enjoyable, but I could do with a bit of humour. So I started writing articles about mainly driving around Donegal with the dog in the front of the passenger seat of the car. And they liked them and they published them. And I've been kind of writing opinion pieces ever since. And that's how that got going.
And how does that fit with your life as a GP? Do your patients read your articles? Do they comment? Do you take inspiration from what they say?
Oh, I write down what they say when they're gone, and I record bits. They say they come out with some great stuff. They very rarely read it. They hear me a bit on the radio. I do a bit of broadcasting for the local radio station, which is kind of public service. Like now was the time to get your anti-flu and what to do when you have a bad back, and this time of the year people be pulling out lawnmowers and things and that sort of advice. And that really is well listened to. But the writing, I don't know, it sort of disappears out there and you never know what effect you've had on people.
Do you feel that's a medium to get the health message across, or is it purely for entertainment?
I think it's nice to put a message in without beating people over the head with it. Because you see, it depends what you take me on for. If I go on Tip FM as a doctor, you have to have a certain sort of toe the party line a bit. And that was, and give proper scientific information in a very clear way. And, you always remember doctor means teacher. And I see it as kind of a teaching role, and without being boring or didactic about it. But this was really important during COVID. Now, during COVID, I was in radio 3 times a week. And what I was doing, it wasn't that I was an expert in virology or public health or anything like that. But I think I did learn one thing. It's how to absorb information quickly and distill it down into a message that's understandable. So even though at the end of a long day at work you wouldn't feel like it, I'd go home and I'd be looking to see what Mike Ryan and people like that, like Luke O'Neill in Ireland would be saying, and what the evidence was, and what Tony Houlihan had to say, and sort of get it down into a kind of a soundbite thing, like do this, don't, and that there wasn't much entertainment in that, as you can imagine, and so but it's nice to have a bit of a laugh too on the radio, isn't it? I mean, sometimes I get a lot of dermatology. People ring in with dermatology, and you never know what to do.
No harm to you, Pat. Let me stop you there. But
yeah,
how do you do dermatology on the radio?
that's something I'd love to find out, because I have a thing in my leg. What is it? And it's potentially very serious. You don't want to burst out laughing or say something like, "How the heck do I know?" Or sort of say, this is something now you really would see your own doctor about. And then you kind of extrapolate it into a general message about sunburn and things that change, and all the mole sort of stuff, or how to manage psoriasis or something like that. So that's you can kind of get a message from that isn't particularly to that patient. You always have to kind of, there's little rules that you just kind of, you probably know yourself, you're careful not to veer too much over to one side or the other. But yeah, sometimes it's hard to keep a straight face, even on the radio.
And what about your colleagues? Do your colleagues smile at this? Do they enjoy it? Do they ever maybe comment and maybe you got that wrong, Pat? Or what kind of response?
I'm surprised they're surprisingly nice about it. You'd imagine now. I mean, especially you know the way your predecessor as a doctor always was supposed to have done something, and it took me a few years working to realize that this wasn't exactly the truth. They come in and say, oh, he always gave me sleeping tablets, and he always gave me morphine for my back, and he always told me I was grand to smoke 5 a day. And you're thinking, Jesus, if he said that kind of stuff, he'd be struck off. But you realize they didn't say it at all. So I'm sure they come in and say, Dr. So-and-so said I should be on such a thing. And then he said it on the radio now, and there's probably a lot lost in translation. But they're surprisingly nice about it. I don't know what they're saying behind my back, mind you.
Now, you're a very experienced rural GP and very active in the Rural GPs Association. One of the concerns in general practice right across the world is the death of rural general practice. It seems very difficult to get people to go to your rural general practice. Where do you see the future of rural general practice?
I think rural general practice could actually be lovely, because when I was training about 30, 40 years ago, even, a GP was socially and professionally isolated, and they more or less had to live in whatever small village or whatever they stayed there. They literally lived there, and they were on call nearly all the time. And it wasn't as onerous now. I mean, as there's great stories about them all being sort of found in the pub and this kind of thing, things you wouldn't get away with now. But now they've brought in co-ops, and there's much more organized out of hours. They don't really have to live there. And I can see the tide turning that younger doctors tend to be more into keeping fit than we used to be. Like a lot of them are triathletes, and they're surfers, and they're sailors, and they're into that kind of outdoor living. And just to see that rural practice can be very viable and very enjoyable. And it'd be easier to get a house in a housing shortage. Your children probably would be in better schools, small country schools that have a mix of kids. There's an awful lot of positives about living in the country and the whole healing power of nature and everything. But I don't know, does rural practice worldwide sell itself that way? Now, there is a certain amount of cooperation. I think the one person in an office on their own is maybe isn't very sustainable, and it mightn't be very healthy, for anybody. But certainly, if something as small as 3 or 4 doctors in an area, they could have an absolutely lovely life. Because you do lose something. A village does lose something when it loses the school and the policeman and the doctor and the library and all that sort of thing, and it becomes just a sort of a satellite town of the city. And you want that community emphasis and the people who can do every little job. I think there's a lot of people waking up to that, but I just hope that it's filtering through to medicine.
One of the problems I see in medicine is how general practice gets bad press. Now, you're a wonderful rural GP. Just sell general practice to me.
Well, we're doing our best. We picked this. We didn't pick this because we couldn't become consultants or anything like that, and we didn't pick it because we wanted to make a load of money. We're perpetually trying to keep the show on the road with very few resources. Sometimes we really feel that getting people into hospital can be sometimes damn nearly impossible. That the support to keep people at home aren't there. And we know that, we don't have to be told it. I don't think in Ireland there's the same kind of bad press that GPs are getting in the UK. It's very much a case of blaming the person who delivers the pizza because it wasn't cooked properly. It isn't our fault that the health service is in crisis. We have actually been shouting the alarms for years and years and telling people this isn't good enough. And we are advocates for our patients. We're the ones who ring consultants, ring secretaries, and we say, what's going on? Why don't we're advocating a constant basis, but there is a danger with that bad press, and it's a danger people won't want to do it, and people will resign, and people will emigrate, and people will retire early, and they'll do other things because we've plenty of other options. So I just think it's sad, and it's pretty illogical really to be blaming GPs for the state of the health service, because I can say nearly every single GP I know can't do anymore. They can't work longer hours than they're working. They can't see more patients than they're seeing. They can't up their game any more than they're doing it. They're at capacity. They've been at capacity for several years, and they're not doing themselves any favors by working flat out all the time. So it's something that maybe you mightn't miss till it's gone.